Welcome back to The Breakdown with me, NLW. It's a daily podcast on macro, Bitcoin, and the big picture power shifts remaking our world. What's going on, guys? It is Thursday, March 6th, and today we are previewing tomorrow's White House Crypto Summit. Before we get into that, however, if you are enjoying The Breakdown, please go subscribe to it, give it a rating, give it a review, or if you want to dive deeper into the conversation, come join us on the Breakers Discord. You can find a link in the show notes or go to bit.ly/breakdownpod. Well, friends, excitement is starting to build around the first White House Crypto Summit to be held on Friday. The series of events takes the place of the Crypto Council the administration had initially been considering. Details are still a little vague, but the original plan was to establish a permanent council of advisors to develop crypto policy for the country. This iteration of the plan seems to involve holding a series of summits to work on individual policies, each with a separate invite list. We don't know exactly what will be on the agenda for the first summit, but all indications and the smart money suggest that this will be the unveiling of policy details for the Crypto Strategic Reserve. Over the past month, we've had a steady trickle of anonymous sources saying that the Crypto Council idea fell apart because of squabbling among industry leadership. One source told Decrypt this week that, quote, "I would say they made an excellent strategic decision to keep a pissing match outside of the White House as opposed to bringing it inside the White House." Richard Grenell, one of Trump's top diplomats, seemed to confirm this view, tweeting last week, "There's a disturbing trend in crypto where the same players who once backed far-left candidates and policies, the very people behind Operation Choke Point 2.0, are now manipulating the system again to eliminate competition. This is not only the wrong path for the US, but also completely at odds with MAGA." Giving comments to Politico yesterday, investor Nick Carter said of the industry, "They all hate each other, but they hate outsiders more." In that context, the invite list for the event gives a lot of insight into which crypto executives are still in the good graces of the White House, and which might have torched their relationships already. The source for this, by the way, is Eleanor Terrett, Fox Business reporter, who is all over the crypto beat, and who I think can be trusted to have actually confirmed the sources. This stands in opposition to many of the lists that are floating around Twitter/X right now. Eleanor's list includes Vlad Tenev, the CEO of Robinhood, Arjun Sethi, the co-CEO of Kraken, Michael Saylor, who needs no introduction, Coinbase's Brian Armstrong, Sergey from Chainlink, Kyle Samani from Multicoin Cap, Zach Witkoff, the co-founder of the Trump-supported World LibertyFi, plus a co-founder of Paradigm, the CEO of Exodus, and David Bailey from Bitcoin Magazine. Some are reporting that Paulo Arduino, the CEO of Tether, has also received an invitation, and many are wondering if he'd actually show up in the US for that. Where the list gets interesting is in the omissions, specifically those who had their tokens included in Trump's crypto reserve announcement last weekend. Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano, has confirmed that he hasn't received an invitation. In a live stream, he scoffed, "It's a 4-hour gathering at the White House. I guess the president is speaking. It's going to be a roundtable. I don't imagine much policy work will be done." For the past few months, Hoskinson has been dropping hints that he has an in with the White House, referring to VIP dinners and trips to Mar-a-Lago. But a source told Unchained, quote, "They're running around town trying to push their own sort of narrative. They're not involved in anything about trying to influence policy, and they are not invited to Friday's summit." The other notable absence is Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse. This one hasn't been confirmed either way, and the XRP army are peddling various unsourced lists that include Garlinghouse. Either way, it's fairly clear that Garlinghouse has been successfully lobbying the White House in recent months. Yesterday, Unchained reported that, quote, "Ripple Labs executives reportedly pitched President Trump to include Solana in the crypto reserve plan to give it more legitimacy among the crypto community." Some are speculating then that if Garlinghouse doesn't come on Friday, that means that he's now on the outs in Trump world. Ryan Selkis, who has recently resumed his role as Garlinghouse's worst enemy, suggested that the Ripple executive is a political liability for the White House. Earlier in the week, as crypto czar David Sachs was criticized for self-dealing regarding the additional tokens added to the reserve, Selkis commented, "David Sachs getting slandered is the natural byproduct of letting Brad Garlinghouse anywhere near the White House inner circle. Hosting him is smart politics to ensure the XRP money hose funds GOP leaders. Listening to him, on the other hand, is pure idiocy." The discourse surrounding all of this has been about as gross as you would expect. The discussion this week has been all about who secured a golden ticket and who is being left out, rather than having anything to do with policy in any meaningful way. Now, of course, it would be naive to think that this is anything other than how the game is played in Washington, but it does sort of make the crypto industry seem pretty fundamentally unserious and more like a prom committee than the future of finance. In fact, influential media outlets like Politico are now covering the infighting far more closely than the actual substance. Fool's errand probably to think it would be any other way, but still worth calling out. Now, as far as actual substance for the summit, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has dropped a few hints. Speaking with an independent White House correspondent, he said, "The president definitely thinks that there's a Bitcoin strategic reserve. Now there will be the question of how do we handle the other cryptocurrencies? And I think the model is going to be announced on Friday when we do that. Confirming that a Bitcoin reserve is still the central idea, he added, a Bitcoin strategic reserve is something the president's interested in. He spoke about it all during the campaign trail, and I think you're going to see it executed on Friday. So Bitcoin is one thing, and then the other currencies, the other crypto tokens, I think will be treated differently. Positively, but differently. For what it's worth, Michael Saylor made an appearance on Fox Business yesterday to discuss the crypto reserve, and he was grinning from ear to ear as if he knows something. David Sachs also tweeted earlier today, over the past decade, the federal government sold approximately 195,000 Bitcoin for proceeds of $366 million. If the government had held the Bitcoin, it would be worth over $17 billion today. That's how much it has cost American taxpayers not to have a long-term strategy. Hello, friends. I am thrilled to share that Ledger is once again partnering and sponsoring with The Breakdown. Many of you know, but for those of you who don't, Ledger is the most secure hardware wallet for your crypto and logins. It's trusted by 7 million users and secures 20% of the world's digital assets. What's more, Ledger is a lot more than wallets. Over the recent years, they've built a comprehensive ecosystem of products and services, all of which are designed to make digital ownership more secure and accessible. You can buy your Bitcoin with Ledger and Ledger Live, and so much more. Basically, not only do they want to keep your assets secure, they want you to be able to do more with them. Ledger's newest devices, the Ledger Stacks and Ledger Flex, introduce the world's first secure touchscreens, making it easier and safer to manage your transactions and assets. Alongside Ledger Stacks and Ledger Flex, the company also launched the Ledger Security Key app, offering a safer alternative to traditional passwords and enhancing your digital security. If you are in this space, you owe it to yourself to at least check out Ledger and their ecosystem, what they have available to you. So thanks once again to Ledger for sponsoring the show. So on the one hand, we have this policy summit and the potential Bitcoin reserve. But then on the other hand, some are starting to question whether President Trump even holds crypto as a high priority for his administration. Unpacking Tuesday night's congressional address, T.D. Cowen noted that crypto was completely absent from the sprawling 90-minute speech. Political analyst Jarrett Seaberg wrote, if it was a personal priority, then it would have been in the speech. He noted that crypto is featured heavily in Trump's social media posting over recent weeks and even became a staple of stump speeches during the campaign. For that reason, Seaberg considered Trump's silence on the topic more notable than the lack of comment on housing or banking policy. Seaberg pondered whether the lack of comment was a political strategy. Congress is currently working on stablecoin legislation, which will require the votes of Senate Democrats to pass. Having Trump closely associated with stablecoin policy could drive a wedge and make it more difficult for Democrats to cross the floor. However, ultimately, he settled on the idea that Trump just doesn't personally care that much about crypto, commenting, Trump talks up crypto when he is before crypto investors, yet we continue to believe this is not a personal priority. With all respect to T.D. Cowen and Jarrett, I just think this is an incorrect analysis. The State of the Union thing that wasn't exactly the State of the Union was red meat culture war fodder. Whatever side of the culture war you find yourself on, it's pretty hard to watch those 90 minutes and not think that that was entirely what it was about. There wasn't big substance there. It wasn't a real deep look at or prioritization of policy issues. It was about rallying some parts of the base, keeping other parts angry. And I personally would not read anything into crypto not being included, except that crypto doesn't rank as a culture war issue. Now, as to whether Trump personally gives much of a lick about crypto, T.D. Cowen may be right that it's not a huge priority. Then again, it could be that social media is just the better place for that discussion, and the administration is sophisticated enough from a media perspective to know which audiences and which mediums to use for which types of conversations. Much more positively, speaking of partisanship, earlier this week, the Senate voted to revoke the IRS broker rule. The rule was first directed by the Inflation Reduction Act in 2021 and finalized late last year. Now, if you were not around then, this was the thing that got the crypto policy groups to be together and fired up in Washington, really in an organized way for the first time. The rule is not yet in effect, but it would force DeFi platforms to keep records of customer trades in a way similar to stock brokerages. The measure was variously seen by industry figures as unworkable, unwieldy, and even unconstitutional. At first, many people assumed that it was just a mistake or an oversight, but then when they found out it wasn't, that created a whole wave of advocacy, which actually held up the infrastructure bill by about 2 weeks, much to the chagrin of the senators who were trying to push it through. A statement of policy issued by crypto czar David Sachs echoed the industry's critiques. This rule, he wrote, issued as a midnight regulation in the final days of the previous administration, would stifle American innovation and raise privacy concerns over the sharing of taxpayers' personal information, while imposing an unprecedented compliance burden on American DeFi companies. The resolution to repeal was introduced by Senator Ted Cruz and passed with flying colors. 18 Democrats crossed the floor to vote with Republicans, a record for this type of vote. It easily surpassed the 12 Democrat senators who voted to repeal SAB 121 last year. Coin Center Executive Director Peter Van Valkenburg cheered the result after years of advocacy, tweeting, "Senate passed with 70 votes in favor. Developer rights and user privacy isn't partisan. On to the House." This was the first crypto vote of the new Congress and gives some hope that bipartisan crypto policy is possible during this administration. Crucially, this vote carried a 2/3 majority, the threshold to defeat a filibuster. As a Congressional Review Act resolution, this vote only required a simple majority. However, it implies that there could be enough pro-crypto senators to pass legislation later this year. Justin Slaughter, the VP of Regulatory Affairs at Paradigm, gave some context of how unprecedented this vote really is, commenting, "This is the new record for number of Senate votes for a repeal of a regulation via the Congressional Review Act in history. The previous record was the 60 votes for repeal of SAB 121 last year. The war on crypto by the Biden administration has ended, disavowed by Democrats in Congress." Point being, and one that I've made before, that this is a very good time to try to sift through the juicy, titillating stories that are getting media all fired up, the infighting, the drama, the soap opera nature of things, to instead look at the underlying fundamentals of policy and opportunity in America. On that front, things have never looked better, and I, for one, am excited to see what this Friday's summit brings. For now, that's going to do it for today's breakdown. Appreciate you listening as always, and until next time, be safe and take care of each other. Peace